Satsuki and Senketsu battle the brainwashed evil Ryuko in my review of Kill La Kill, episode 21. As an action anime fan, this episode pretty much rocked my jollies. If I could somehow inject it into my veins in some form, I would. This week's episode of Kill La Kill was a perfect demonstration for why this show is so damned entertaining. The incredibly awesome characters, the stylistic animation, the action scenes which have such great choreography and have scenes in them which are almost impossible to describe, not to mention all the incredible plot twists, the great music, and just all of the sexiness overall. This is a fantastic series, and this week's episode was incredible. I loved it. It was one of my favorite episodes of the entire series, and that's saying a lot because I've loved pretty much every episode of Kill La Kill. So let's go ahead and jump in. This week's episode actually opened up with a scene that happened earlier where we actually get to see what happened when Ryuko and Nui were attaching the Junketsu suit to Ryuko. Now, we actually saw before that she didn't put it on like normal. They sort of like put it on in pieces. And what they actually did was they actually sewed it to her body, which is freaky as hell, and it also makes it so that they cannot remove it from her. And this is, of course, causing her to become brainwashed and live her in her own little weird fantasy world. And what's really crazy about this scene is, and I can't believe I was unaffected by it, but the scene actually opens up with Ryuko and Nui and Ryuko, and they are completely buck-ass naked, and they're all fondling each other, you know, typical Ryuko style. And, you know, maybe it's just because it's happened so much in the series at this point that I'm not too affected by it, but it's still pretty hilarious to see it. And I was kind of hoping that Ryuko would go through like a whole transformation sequence, but still, it's just awesome to see that scene included. And then when we finally get to the action, that's when things really kick off, because Satsuki immediately goes into her transformation sequence with the Senketsu, and it looks really awesome with her two dual blade swords, and that's when they start to fight each other, and of course the choreography here is awesome. And what I love about it is that Satsuki is actually using Senketsu in a completely different way. She's actually going through all the various transformations very, very quickly, but she's unable to use the life fiber synchronization, so she's not able to go at like full power. But still, it makes for a really great scene because eventually Mako gets involved, the Elite Four get involved. I specifically remember this scene where Nonon was firing these missiles at Ryuko, and she just jumps through the air and slices all of them in half. And just the way it was animated was just really slick and awesome. It may seem like something of a cop-out at this point because whenever there's been a scene in the series where Ryuko is like going kind of crazy, Mako always seems to snap her out of it. And that's kind of what she does in this week's episode, but I like the way it was handled, how she sort of swapped costumes with Satsuki and she ended up wearing Senketsu. And I was really, really hoping that Mako was going to be the one who was actually going to fight against her and go through the transformation sequence. But still, she was able to help out in her own way. And I especially like the scene where she started to do the hallelujah thing again, and she started to do it really slowly, and you could hear like the record starting up really slow. I just thought that's always been something that's really been funny about Mako. That's been like one of her weird like comedic calling cards. But the scene gets even more intense when Nui Harime decides to arrive on the scene, and then she starts fighting against Satsuki in a very intense scene. But then Mako, she and Senketsu decide they are going to snap Ryuko out of this weird funk, and I like the way it's handled where they both basically get sucked into Ryuko. That's really what happens, and they show you that weird world that she's living in where she's having that fake wedding, and in comes Mako with Senketsu, and she tries to snap her out of this situation, and Ryuko just slashes her. And at first I thought maybe she really did cut through Mako when this happened, but no, this actually snaps her out of her funk, and that weird, like, space water shit just explodes out of her body. It's the only way I can describe it, guys. And this is basically when she starts to get out of her funk, and she even throws her sword at Nui Harime, which slams her against this wall, which is so incredibly awesome. But then Ryuko starts to forcibly rip Junketsu off, and there's blood exploding all over the place. And this is, I'm guessing, the moment when she's finally getting out of her weird Simone Gurren Lagann funk, and she's going to be able to wear Senketsu again. I'm not sure what this means for Junketsu. I'm not sure if it's been destroyed, if Satsuki's actually going to be able to wear it again, or if she's just going to be doing the whole nudist beach thing, which still looks pretty damn awesome. However, I'd like to see Junketsu come back because I don't know, I feel like he needs to say something, and only because he looks so similar to Senketsu. He has the eyes. I imagine maybe he has the ability to speak, but no one can hear him. Maybe that's because he hasn't found the right owner yet. I'm not really sure what they're going to go with Junketsu, or maybe they're just going to end it right here with him being ripped to shreds and blood flying all over the place. Otherwise, this was still an incredible episode with a lot of really cool plot twists. The little moment in the middle of the episode where Ryuko is getting on the giant life fiber and riding it into the sky is really cool because it's sort of like giving us the foreshadowing to the big climax that's happening. And I'm glad they were able to wrap up this whole Ryuko is evil thing, but it was still a really nice trip. Everybody got to do something cool this week. I also liked that even though the Elite Four don't have like their old costumes anymore, they're still pretty capable in what they can do. Like, the scene where Sonagiyama jumps out, he has these really, really badass daggers, which are colored, like, green and black, and they just go with his whole, like, samurai theme, and Nono has the rockets, and Gamagori's big, and he's using the big, like, suction device, which doesn't really work on Ryuko, but still, it was still a pretty damn awesome episode. Just, there were so many little moments, and so many little cool choreographed moments. So this week's episode of Kill la Kill was pretty badass. It had everything. Great characterization, awesome action scenes, incredible colors, great music, great artwork, a lot of funny moments, and just badassery all over it. And again, it was incredibly sexy. I loved this episode. I was lapping it up like a frickin' thirsty dog. In fact, that's good hydration. And that's a 10 out of 10. Check it out, guys. So if you guys had a chance to check out this week's episode of Kill la Kill, it's time to let me know what you thought about it. And you can tell me with your comments below. You can tell me about your favorite scenes from this week's episode where they were fighting against Ryuko and Junketsu, and you can tell me what you want to see from the future of the series. Remember guys, before you leave, make sure and hit that like button so you can give this video a thumbs up. It's one of the easiest ways to support our videos. And you can subscribe to the channel. You can check us out on Facebook and Twitter as well. So, I'll see you next time guys. Super Kami Guru 9000, out.